by. Satellite coming down in 3, 2, 1.
How's she going, bud? Welcome to part 2 of the ACE Medical tutorial. Part 2 focuses on ACE Medical for medics. If you missed part 1, which covers ACE Medical for soldiers, I'm going to assume that you have all of the knowledge from that. So you're going to want to go back and look at part 1 for that. And keep in mind, we are not using the default ACE Medical settings for this tutorial. We are using settings that I believe make ACE Medical a more fun experience. So if you are looking at what settings are we using, or what do I think make ACE Medical a fun and engaging experience focusing on gameplay and not downtime, then go ahead and check out part 0. But without further ado, let's get into ACE Medical for medics. So, what equipment do I carry with me as a medic? This is going to be highly dependent on your community. So, the two things that are really going to change what type of stuff you need to bring. Number 1, how often you have resupplies in your community. We almost never have mid-op resupplies, so you got what you got. Number 2, how skilled your players are and how likely they're going to go down. I have a lot of players that go down, so I carry a lot of equipment. Number 3, how punishing your server settings are on weight, because the higher your weight, the worse time you're going to have trying to move around on the battlefield. Our server's pretty lenient, so we can carry a lot. But these are the basic things that you're going to want to carry. I carry a bunch of basic bandages. I use those for anything that's a small wound. They're nice to have just as a temporary bandage, quick bandage. Elastic bandages, I carry a lot of these. They are the most effective bandage. They're just going to reopen fast, but because I'm there, I can stop that reopening. So I use elastic bandages almost all the time. I like to bring packing bandages in case I'm going to need them for a longer period of time, and a little bit of quick clot. Blood is the main one that's going to change based on your community, because it's heavy, but it's also important. So I always try to carry around 3-liter bags. Those are good enough to get somebody from lost a lot of blood up to something you can wake them up most of the time. So those are my go-to. Then I'll carry some 500 ml bloods to kind of, if it didn't quite get them into that lost some blood from a lost a lot of blood, when I'm giving blood, that 500 ml is usually enough to just push them over the edge into stable enough to wake up. I never carry 250 ml bags. There's just not enough use for them. Ultimately, what you're going to be doing is you're going to end up having to stack 250s, and that just takes more time than just putting in a 500 or putting in 1,000. Epinephrine auto injectors. These are wake-up juice. These boost the chance of waking up a stable casualty so that they can get back into the fight. They're fantastic and one of the most useful things you carry as a medic. Morphine auto injectors, used to resolve pain. In base ACE Medical, when not using any other mods, this is the only way you can knock out pain other than just waiting. So these are huge and important to bring. Splints, I like to bring 8. It depends on the fracture chance in your group, how often you're going to see fractures, so you can kind of judge them based on that. But with our settings, I find 6 to 8 is a pretty good number of splints to have, because they're one-time use. Surgical kit is the big one. This is what we need as medics to do our job. I don't ever carry the personal aid kits. With the server settings we have set up in part 0, you don't need a pack. They're functionally identical to the surgical kit. You might as well just carry the surgical kit. And then tourniquets, I carry 6. That's enough for every limb, plus I have 2 extras if somebody runs away still wearing one of my tourniquets once they wake up. So, or I'm treating multiple patients. So 6 is a pretty good balance. Plus, with the server settings we're using, hopefully every soldier you're treating has a tourniquet on them, and you're going to use their own equipment first. So this should be more than enough equipment for your average fight. So let's look at what to do with this equipment. So here we go. A willing volunteer. Step number 1 starts very similar to your basic soldier medical. So we're going to stabilize this guy. So I'm going to pop on some tourniquets to try and stop the bleeding in limbs. I'm going to apply appropriate bandage choices, and I'm going to get him to the point where he's no longer bleeding. Alright, we've currently stopped the bleeding. You can still see he's got some wounds to his limbs, but those are controlled by tourniquet. So our next step is we're going to look at whether or not this guy has a pulse. So we find no heart rate. We're going to quickly throw on a packing bandage in this case. You'll notice his wound reopened, and I'm getting tired of dealing with any reopening. We need to do CPR, try and wake this guy up. Alright, so we've done our CPR, we've got a pulse rate back. Now we need to finally stop all this bleeding from continuing and get some blood into this guy. So, I'm going to close up all these bandages, or all these open wounds, so not wounds controlled by a tourniquet. And he's all blue. Now to stop those reopening, I'm going to quickly use my surgical kit. Stitching takes 5 seconds per injury that it's closing. If you need to cancel it in between, that's fine. It'll stop and save your progress of stitching. Try to stop it on 5-second increments. So, for example, if I were going to stop now, I would lose 4 seconds. If I stop at the 15-second mark, then I'm not wasting anything and I've just closed a wound. So every 5 seconds you can cancel your stitching and you won't lose any progress. Here we go. We've got him mostly stabilized. It looks like his head opened up while we were stitching him here. So I'm quickly going to throw an elastic bandage on his head to finally close that up. And we'll quickly stitch up that head. And yeah, you can see it was just a quick wound that reopened on his head. Once we're done this, then we can start bandaging those arms, those legs, and taking our time to close these wounds. Now, you would think this is a great time to run blood in. And if you were running Cat Medical, I would agree with you. Ace Medical has a bug where you cannot run any IV fluids anywhere while any tourniquet is on the body. It's a system that was designed to prevent you from running blood into a tourniquet limb because obviously you're not going to get any medication or any blood through that. Unfortunately, the checks don't quite work correctly. And when you're running blood anywhere, if it sees a tourniquet anywhere, that blood won't actually get applied to your patient, and you won't see that increase in blood loss. So before we can run blood into this guy with base Ace Medical, we need to clean up all these wounds and remove these tourniquets. So this is one of those times where it's really nice if you have a team, like you've got a group of guys around you, you can have them help you with this bandaging, and it goes a lot faster. But elastic bandages are your friend here. You don't need them to stay closed for very long. You just need to get everything to stop bleeding, and then you're going to rock your surgical kit through here. Alright, he's stitched, he's good. Let's get these tourniquets off, get some blood in there. So, we're going to select any limb. We're going to give blood 1,000. Alrighty, so his blood's running in. I chose a liter bag. Why? He's lost a lot of blood. So, the classes of hemorrhage that you will see in that right-hand side will be lost some blood, lost a large amount of blood, lost a lot of blood, lost a fatal amount of blood. Arma characters have 6 liters of blood. Some blood means they have 5.1 liters left or more. A lot of blood, 4.2. A large amount of blood, 3.6. Fatal amount of blood, anything below 3 liters of blood. So that can kind of help you judge your decisions. So for the most part, you can get anybody less than fatal or a large amount of blood back up to some blood loss, which is stable enough to wake them up easily with just a single liter bag. So all we have left to do here is wait for this blood to run in. Adding another line of blood will not change anything. Running saline and blood at the same time will not change anything in base Ace Medical. So we just kind of have to wait it out here. And there we go. You can see he just ticked over to lost some blood. He has a heart rate. He has a decent enough blood pressure. This guy is now running wake-up ticks. So every so many seconds, he's checking to see if he can wake up. We can significantly boost that chance by hitting him with epinephrine. Oh, he's woken up on us already. We've got a pretty high base wake-up chance. Like I said, though, if you need to, you can wake somebody up with epinephrine. We call it wake-up juice in my community because that's its job. It increases the percentage chance that a patient is going to wake up once they're stable enough. By stable, they have to have a heart rate. They have to be at lost some blood or less. Then you can start dealing with the quick things, which is to treat them for pain. As you saw here, this guy's an AI. AI treat themselves for pain, and pain goes away on them automatically. On another player, that won't happen as quickly. You can give them morphine. If you're giving a player morphine, A, say, I'm going to give you morphine. And B, check the activity log, check the triage card, make sure nobody's given them morphine already in the last couple of minutes. Morphine, great at getting rid of pain. I'll give this guy morphine as an example. He already got rid of his pain because he's a magical AI. But there we go. He's good. If he had pain, pain would have gone away. However, if I don't do that check, and I don't check the triage card, and I give him a second morphine because another medic already did it, or he gave it to himself, and we double dose him on morphine, very quickly, he's going to drop unconscious and lose a heart rate on us because he's now overdosing on morphine. And in base ace medical, there is no way for you to reverse a morphine overdose. You're just going to have to sit there and wait for this guy and do CPR on him until the morphine runs out. So this guy has no heart rate. We got to sit here and do CPR for a huge amount of time because he overdosed on morphine. So do not double dose people on morphine. You're just going to get stuck doing CPR on them forever. So that's the basics of Ace Medical for medics. There's not a whole lot to it. Things you need to remember. You still need to stop the bleeding as you would in Soldier Medical. You can still treat splints as you did in Soldier Medical. Your specialties are that final stabilization, getting them from stabilized unconscious to waking up and back in the fight. So you need to get them stop bleeding and close those wounds using your surgical kit. You can only stitch a closed wound, but try to get them closed as fast as you can. Then get the tourniquets off, then run blood into them. Again, 1,000 liters is a good starting point for almost anybody. That will get anything but a large or a fatal amount of blood back up above that some blood threshold and be able to get them back in the fight. If they've lost a large or a fatal amount of blood, then you probably are going to need to drop another 500 on top of that 1,000. That's why we carry those 500s. Then, once they've lost some blood, or better, they have a heart rate, then you hit them with that epinephrine and wake them up and get them back in the fight so that your guys aren't spending the whole game unconscious. You've done your job, you've had your fun, time for them to go have theirs. If you want a quick little bonus instruction, I'm just going to go into a little bit of depth here in a minute on bandaging patients and which bandages are most effective. It's going to be a very quick TLDR. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. So very quickly, we're going to just take a look at the different types of bandages we have in Ace. I'm going to show you these charts. I'm not going to take you all the way through them. I'll just give you the sums. You can pause if you need to. So, on the left-hand side here, we have all the types of wounds that you can see in Ace Medical broken down into type and then whether or not they're minor, major, or large. Then you have effectiveness. So that's the effectiveness of this type of dressing. In this case, we're looking at the field dressing of closing a wound. The higher the effectiveness, the more of those wounds it will close, and the more likely it will close a major or a large wound completely with one treatment. Chance is the percentage chance that this injury will reopen after bandaging. Minimum is the minimum number of time in seconds before this wound reopens. Maximum, the maximum. So here we're going to take a look at the bottom. Field dressing, very average bandage. 1.43 effectiveness on average chance of 40% to reopen, and an average reopening time of 590 seconds. Great bandage for basic medical and just to have a bunch of as a go-to bandage. Packing bandage. Fairly okay. Again, not super high on the effectiveness. Average is 1.43. Average reopening chance, 71%. So really high chance to reopen. As you can see here, velocity, puncture wounds, and large abrasions, 100% chance these are going to reopen. But really long reopening time. An average of 957 before it's going to reopen. So this is a really good long-term holding bandage when you don't have a chance to stitch them yet. Elastic bandage. That's a lot of red. However, one of the best bandages as a medic because of that super high effectiveness. 2.15 average effectiveness. It's going to close wounds fast with very minimal multiple bandaging. That's great. As you can see, huge chance to reopen, very fast to reopen. Average reopening time of just 107 seconds. So this is the one where you just throw on a ton of elastic bandages to stop the bleeds, and then you stitch it up, and then you don't have to worry about reopening. A great bandage for medics. I know it looks bad, but it's that high effectiveness and the fact that we are medics and we can stitch people that makes this a hugely effective bandage and a great choice for us. Lastly, Quick Clot. Very quick to apply, so really fast to put on to people, really low effectiveness. You can see there, 0.83. However, kind of nice, has that long reopening time, kind of like the packing bandages. So there's your overview of bandages. If you wanted to know which bandage to use in which scenario, those are kind of the stats. It's not hugely important to use. For the most part, I use field dressings on small, minor, anything. I use elastic bandages to quickly stop bleeding when I have multi-system major traumas, and then I start relying on my packing bandages if I'm dealing with reopening wounds while I'm trying to stitch somebody, just to have that longer hold over time. Now that's truly it. That's all I've got for you for Ace Medical. If you've watched Part 0, or your server admins watch Part 0, and you've got your server set up to be fun, you've watched Part 1, and you know the basics of Soldier Medical. You've watched this part, and you know the basics of being a medic, and you've even hung around long enough to learn about the bandages. That's everything I need to teach you to be an effective medic in Arma 3 with base Ace Medical. That being said, the next series I'm going to put out for medical tutorials will be including the fantastic Cat Medical Rewrite, which adds a teeny bit of complexity, or a lot, depending on how you configure it. Again, I configure for fun, but it allows you to get people up even faster and gives your medics just a little bit more engaging gameplay and a little bit more to do. So if you're interested and that's something that you think is going to be fun, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, and we'll look at Cat Medical here in the near future. Take care, bud. I needed you to be sicker.